So I just wanted some ideas. Who's running the microphone around? Nobody? Right.
I can run around with this one.
Right. We just want an idea of like what is assessment. So I'm not going to. Did it say somewhere that I was going to talk to you about assessment? What is assessment? I haven't got a clue. The idea is that you tell me, because I'm on a information gathering session actually, to think about what is assessment. Because if you're home educating, should you be assessed formally? Should there be another way of assessment? What's acceptable as assessment? So I just wanted to gather some ideas. And so I think we'll start off with the audience. We'll do a bit of audience, a bit of Tim, a bit of audience, a bit of Arnie, and go like that. And so here we've got Keisha's a PhD student who's not studying home education, but she's studying primary school children.
Just put it.
Let her just introduce herself, because we don't know anything about her or Pia.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Keisha Serbois. I am a first-year PhD student here at the University of Hong Kong within the Faculty of Education. And my research is looking at this issue, parents' choice, in aspect of primary one admission. My focal point before I attended this conference was focusing strictly on international schools, private tutoring, the kindergarten system. I'm very familiar with the admission shortages, the waiting list, and the competition to just get a child into a international school or a DSS school or a Band 1 school. And this conference, thank you so much for just being so honest. I've learned so much about homeschooling and hearing your voices, because that is not in the academic literature. So when she asked me to sit up here, I was like, oh, I'm not good enough. How could I? But I'll share whatever I have, and I'm very pleased to even know that, you know, EDiversity is here, because it's making a bridge possible between the academic and the parent and the student and the school. And I think that is really what Hong Kong needs as we move forward into this issue of globalization and internationalization and IB programs and everything that that means for this city. So thank you for embracing me and allowing me to sit up here.
So we're here, yes, we're here to sort of blow her mind about change her way of thinking, move it forward. Everybody's here to transform your thinking or to move it forward. Pia?
Hi, hi, I'm Pia Petson Stubbs. I'm a homeschool mum. I've homeschooled my son, who's 16, or his whole life. We've had no curriculum, ever. Until now, he's asking for lots of curriculum to get A-levels. So that's a challenge.
Thank you, Pia. Arnie?
Well, I'm the junior partner of my wife, who is the chairman of EDiversity. I mostly try to do as I'm told, and I nevertheless cause trouble. But we've, and I've lived in Hong Kong for 40 years, and we are homeschool parents too. My girls have been around helping here and there in this conference, which is they're able to do because they don't have to go to school tomorrow. And so that's where I come from. You'll hear from me a little bit later when I'm going to talk to you as the last talk about what the classroom of the future could look like.
Great, thank you. So I'm not going to, Tim's not going to say anything actually, just because he wanted to show. So I would like somebody to tell us what they think about, when they think about assessment, how do they think about it? It's not going to work. You'll all have to go home if we don't have people speaking, by the way, so it's compulsory.
I immediately have a sense of fear, and I get scared just with the word of assessment, because I didn't do very well with assessments when I was a child. So assessment makes me worried.
And what would you do if you were assessing your own child? How would you see that working?
Assessing my own child takes me being a researcher and knowing about children and being very well versed in development so that I can watch them, observe them, and relax knowing that they're following a fairly predictable continuum, I guess.
So
And if there's something that's unusual or lacking, then I need to know what to do about it. But I have a very, very strong belief in the natural development of children, and that that involves a lot of trust. Yeah. So trusting them is a very key thing for me, and I'm still learning, but I'm getting better at being able to let them be. But there's no formal assessment that I do. It's just knowing children.
But what is your background then?
I work with. I'm currently working with infants and toddlers at an international school, at Yuchung International School. I work with the caregivers as well. So I have an adult and child class, and this year we've started to focus a lot more on the adult education as well as the child's education. So we sit alongside the adults and watch their children, and we talk about their children and help them with behaviour issues and caregiving and things like that. But I have 4 children. One is schooled. She's been at school since year 1 at International Bilingual Chinese-English School. And then 3 under 5. And so my thinking has changed a lot since my big one went to school. And I'm not keen on sending them to school just yet. There's not a school that I've found that cuts it. To be honest, yeah.
Great, thank you. Can we have another person? Oh, you didn't tell us your name. Sarah, this is Sarah. When you're about to speak, perhaps you could just let us know your name so that you're more than a voice. We have a name, a person, and a voice. We need somebody else, otherwise we'll pick volunteers randomly.
Hi, my name is Percy. I mean, assessment, I think that is fact of life, right? I mean, we need results to prove ourselves. I'm not a homeschooler parent, but I just wanted to know and see how others think, because result, certificate is fact of life. I mean, that's my curiosity and interest, sitting down here to understand more about, how to assess homeschool students.
Thank you.
Can I give a response to that? Because I'm a product of the normal regular education system. And I blame all my faults on that. But the point is that for my children who homeschool, there may be there probably will be a need for a formal certificate at some stage, because like it or not, if they want to go to university, there are ways of getting in without one, but frankly the standard way is with some sort of matriculation qualification. But for this current stage of their education, and for the last several years, why would we need any form of certificate? There's an Education Bureau gentleman here, and one of his colleagues asked me 2.5 years ago what tests and examinations my children would be doing. And I said, none. And they said, but how will you know what their progress is? And I said, don't be silly, 2 parents, 2 children. You mean we don't know how they're doing? Of course we do. We don't need a formal test or a certificate. And we don't need that certificate for any other external reason. So there is much less need for a formal assessment. We assess them all the time. They'll know that, I criticize them daily, so... She's sitting behind you, actually, my daughter is there. But in other words, we cannot avoid some formal assessments. Informal assessments are also necessary, because you've got to make some judgment if they're doing okay. But you don't need this constant examinations that we live with in Hong Kong, which is weekly almost, isn't it? I don't think you need that. So that's my response to yes, they're essential. Yes, they are, but not in anywhere near the quantity that we have at the moment. That's my view anyway. So.
Yes, it seems there's rather a lot of assessments here. Let's just have another of our nice volunteers. Yes, I'm going...
Hi, I can give you an example of our
Sorry,
daughter.
who are you?
I'm your wife, okay. My name is Dorota, and I homeschool.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chen Ba. So all three of our kids are homeschooled, but when our eldest daughter was in first grade, she was asked to take some tests for the gifted class, 自由班. So, we sent her to school, okay, so she went for that test. And then she comes back home and says, we ask her, so how was it? That was so easy. They gave me the answers because I had ABC. It was a multiple choice question. So she's never, before that, she has never seen a test like that, because why would I be giving her at home a test with ABC, multiple choice questions? That doesn't make any sense. So she was really surprised. Why on earth do kids in school get tests that the answer is given underneath? It doesn't make any sense to her, because, you're supposed to think about the answers and figure out yourself. So, and just like Arnie said, in our homeschool, we really do not assess our kids in any way, except the only way that we assess them is by talking to them, by having a conversation. So we do know what they know and what they need to still improve in, or what they're interested in. So that's the only way that, that assessed is by talking to us.
Don't you find, though, that you have got an ongoing assessment? Because you've just told us something about your daughter, which helps us to make an assessment.
Yeah, well, of course, because I know her. Nobody beside my husband knows our kids as well as I do. So, we assess them maybe in our minds, but we don't give them tests. We don't give them any other ways of proving. They do not need to prove to us or to anybody else what they know.
But you do, don't you? Because you've equipped them with the ability to talk confidently, so that when they're talking to strangers, because every time you talk to somebody, you make an assessment about them, the person you're talking to. So you've equipped your children to allow other people to assess them, and to assess them positively.
Well, I
so there's always assessment.
I differ with the headmistress of our homeschool, and I'm just a humble janitor here. And I do put Zosha in the assessment situation. For those of you who were here yesterday afternoon, and I was asked a very difficult question. As any competent manager, as Arnie will tell you, we delegate. We put the difficult question to my daughter and say, well, Zosha, would you like to take a stab on that question? And then she stood up and gave an answer. And that was an assessment. That's how I put her in a situation. And I was pretty sure she could answer it, but I wasn't quite sure whether she could do it or not, because she never answered a question in this prestigious academic establishment called University of Hong Kong. And, it was a challenge for her. But she took the challenge and then she delivered it. And I was quite pleased with it. So I do give her assessment, but just not the way that we are used to. It's not a written test.
Yes, so if you're home educating, there is, or even if you're not home educating, there's assessment going on all the time, and it is in front of people, it is before an audience. Let's just ask Pia what her comments are.
Well, I would say that, we've not done any tests. But again, it's the same as what you're saying, that you have a close relationship with your child. And so if you send your kid to school, it's a lot of the assessment is to give feedback to the parents, to say, okay, well, as a parent, I want to do how my kid is doing. But I think you take away a lot of that when you homeschool, because you have a continuous relationship with your child. You know that they're doing okay, and whether that is doing X, Y, Z academically or not, that's never been my thing to say, okay, well, he can do trigonometry, okay, can't do trigonometry. It doesn't matter if many other things are in place. So I think that's a continuous continuous conversation with your child. And it's not really, again, it's not a specific assessment. It's a gauge. It's a gauge of happiness and feel good and doing what they want to do. Rather than a sort of, okay, can he do this? And it's not about comparing to other people, other kids. Maybe it was that, at sort of 3 months, did he poop too many times? How many poops did your kid do? That's sort of early on, and then you learn, and then you think, okay, well, no, he's doing okay because he's happy and he's doing his thing. So I think that assessment is, I've learned anyway to gauge that assessment based on him, and it's a sort of a feedback rather than external.
Yes, I think...
if I'm explaining myself well enough, that's...
I think it's quite hard as a parent to gather the confidence, and I think it comes over years to disassociate yourself with formal assessment. And that's really difficult because part of formal assessment, now I know it has lots of very good and honourable reasons for formal assessment, but part of it may be to sap our confidence as parents because we're not professionals. We don't know how to assess. The exams, the tests are designed by professionals, they're normed, they know what they're doing. So it starts to make us feel that we're perhaps, we're not so good with our assessment, the informal assessment. And and the idea that children who are not moving forward. In England, there's been a thing about value added. It's the jumping space. So it's meant to be a sort of a fair way of making the assessment. It's where the child began and where they jump to. But it gives the idea that the higher you jump, the better it is. But actually, learning can be 2 forward, 1 back, 2 forward, 1 back. It doesn't have to go like that. So in fact, I found my home educated group, their value added was very low because they were learning in a slow incline, generally going in a forward position. We hope children are moving forward, but not making the jump. Now, school results can be measured on value added, how high the jump is. But actually, learning doesn't necessarily happen like that, does it? Just to jump to another way of assessment, when women are in childbirth in hospitals, they have to be making a progression forward. And as soon as the childbirth, sort of the contractions slow down a bit, it's generally taken as a bad sign, and the hospital wants to speed it up. But some midwives that are dealing with sort of home births will say, no, a home birth actually can move very slowly, it can go faster, then it can slow down, and that's all right. It's all right to be more gentle and more natural. But of course, hospitals, unlike schools, designed for us all to have some pressure to go forward. Have we got any other comments on assessment? We'll tell you in a little bit. Yes, here we go. Yes.
So my son is not old enough for any school yet. But as a child, I actually loved assessments. I think in a way, in a bad kind of way, in that like when I did well, I would feel good about myself and so on. So it's actually not a very good thing psychologically. And once you got to the top, there's always the pressure. So like for the kid, like if you do so for me, I love tests, right? So if I were really to homeschool my kid, how can I escape from this attachment to tests? Because, how would I know? I mean, I understood the point that, you know your child, you talk to them, you kind of know, how much they know and stuff. But, for example, I'm a math geek, right? So, with that, you can't know how much math they know unless they do, a lot of math, right? I don't know, if that makes sense. For things like mathematics and things you learn by practicing, how do you teach? That's morphing into another question. That's how you teach math, basically.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if this is a direct answer to your question, but I would say that if you said, grade A, you have to learn this amount of information. But if you say, okay, well, grade A is, or A plus, or whatever the top grade is for this amount of information, what's stopping you from learning more? And why would you then set a grade and say, okay, well, at grade A, I've learnt everything there is. How do you, I mean, I think there's sort of incentive coming into to the assessment, because when you say, okay, well, I've learnt all of this, I've learnt the book, I know the book, I did X, Y, Z, and I've got a grade A on the test, but you know, how do you continue beyond that? I know it's not really an answer to your question, but I think it's I think it's an important part of what you're talking about in terms of assessing and tests and grades, and you know, it makes you feel good, but actually, in the end of the day, the purpose is to learn more and to you know, to understand. But how much understanding would it take to go beyond the A level, or I mean the A grade, you know?
Yeah, that's actually one of the reasons I'm attracted to homeschooling. Actually, thank you for bringing that up.
Very welcome.
I think in the early years, at least, as I said, I don't think you need to be following any formal curriculum. So it could be, I mean, you have to perhaps have some confidence in not necessarily sharing the assessment. So who's the assessment for? So, for example, if you want the child to learn and you want to do an assessment, take the child shopping and you do your assessment, so the child even doesn't know it's being assessed, he or she is being assessed. You know, you say to the child, oh no, I haven't got the money I thought I had with me, and I've got to buy all these things. Can you help me? And can you go around adding the things up to make sure that by the time we get to the till, I've only spent 100 Hong Kong dollars and not more. And in that way, you make the assessment of whether your child's capable of doing that. And when you see the child with sort of having some difficulty, you might guide and help the child. And you do some division, some fractions, some multiplication, addition, subtraction. But you do it in a natural way that you might artificially be creating the problem, because naturally you have got $1,000 with you and not 100, but you create that. But then, yes, who's the assessment for? So that's an assessment that would be for you. But yeah, would you go out then to the park and say, my child did really well in the soup? Because a lot of assessment is about talking to people in the park, isn't it? And talking to other parents, and because you do hear in the playground everybody talking that my child's reading so well at school. How's your child doing? You have to say, I don't know how how's your child doing?
Fine, thank you, and you?
Yes, just fine. And so it's having, you have to sort of take a bit of a grip of yourself and not get it. It's very hard not to be competitive with other parents, even when you don't want to be competitive. So in those early years, I think it's okay to lay off the assessment if you're home educating. And I would argue that in schools it's very difficult here, isn't it, to lay off the assessment in the early years? Actually, you need to speak to your machine.
Hello?
Yes? It works if it's like magic. You
Yeah.
just put it close to your mouth.
Thank you for that. I actually have a question for parents who are homeschooling children, let's say age 7, 8, 9, secondary. I did my master's in Beijing. I studied at Beijing Normal University. And my understanding of the primary system there is very different from what I see in Hong Kong. But when we talk about yesterday during the conference, they mentioned learned helplessness. And I've heard a lot of questions about parents. You know, how do you protect yourself against, the fear of my child's falling behind? But my question is, how do you as parents strengthen your child against the assessments of other children? Because young children, school, academics, this relation with other students is also a major factor in how children assess their worth. Like the mother said, she enjoys tests, and I take it she enjoys tests because she was successful at it. So for the child who, is in a homeschool environment and they're not having that experience, when another child makes an assessment, and most children are competitive, so they automatically assume, well, I'm better than you, even if you're not at my school, like you're not in school, so I'm better than you. How do you protect against that?
If I can answer that question, we give them different tests. So simply, if the school values the core subject, math, English, Chinese, physics, chemistry, etc., we give them something else, and something that they are confident, they've been doing it for so long, and they are good at it, and then they develop confidence because they know they can deliver it. And by doing so, they will be doing okay and fine, because in their future life, when they are leaving the school and entering the society, they may not be they're never going to use those academic subjects again, but they need a lot of life skills. So we focus on life skill, and we focus on making sure that they can do that. And of course, life skills are not valued, because we in the Confucius society don't value life skill. We value people with a high academic achievement. So then you need to build confidence in your child and saying that, okay, ignore those people because we know better, they don't. And by giving them stages. So, I mean, you build a stage, you allow your kids to be able to get up to the stage and deliver it. And then sooner or later, somebody is going to appreciate it. Okay, school don't appreciate it, academic don't appreciate it, then move on, because it's a big wide world out there. You don't have to compete in the rat race like everybody else. And guess what? Because there are so many people competing in the rat race, and those who choose not to compete usually end up better, because there's no competition, simply put it. In my presentation, I talk about the Tsinghua University in Taiwan example. Tsinghua only admit 1,500 people out of the 150,000 people who are taking a test every year. So it's a very, very selective process. But guess what? They have 10 places for those who don't even bother to take the test. But then you have to be very exceptional in some area other than a test in order for them to even consider you. So don't join the rat race, and then do something properly, and then the road will open eventually. Thank you.
And I think we wonder why children need to spend so long training for tests. Or why do they have to have continual tests? If a child likes to be tested, or if you want to test your child, then that's fine. If your child enjoys it, some children really do like tests, well, then give them all the tests they want. There's nothing wrong with it. It's if the child is under pressure. I don't know what age here they take the university, the tests that they need for university, but when do the university then look at all the child's test results from when the child was 4? Do they? They don't. So up to what age could you just forget all those tests and just prepare for the university, for the final university entrance exam, or whatever it is, 16? So up to 16 you don't need to do anything. And then how long does it take a child to prepare? A year? A month? A few months? Probably a year? A year. Could you prepare for your university entrance exam here in a year? Or what do you no? You think it would take longer? How? Oh, come on, yes, please. Come on, you're nodding away.
In Hong Kong, we focus on the only DSE for the entrance of university. So normally they use 2 years to prepare for the exam for the students in normal school.
And what age would you take the exam? At 16 or 18? 17
or 18 in Hong Kong.
So a child could go without any assessment until 15, and then if the child wanted to go to university...
Don't forget, as from our front page of our brochure, through their school career, up to that point, up to that one exam you're talking about, there's about 100 tests.
So that's what I'm saying. If we just got rid of, if we didn't do those...
Only the final record will be recognized.
Exactly.
On the result
99 of them are useless.
And only 80% of the students will enter the university in Hong Kong.
So only
80%.
Yes. So we're talking about Artemis. But even for the 18% or for the 100%, they don't actually need to do anything until they're 15. They could just start at 15 with the preparation. So all the rest of the competition, we could just not have, do away with? Yes?
But assessments also have another purpose. What we call is the assessment for learning. So the assessments for the next step learning, not for the ultimate goal.
Can I just ask, sorry, how many children do you know that don't learn?
What?
How many children do you know who don't learn? Children that don't have any particular special need, but how many do you know that don't learn?
I think every children will learn.
Yes.
Every child will learn.
So humans are naturally motivated to learn, aren't they?
Yes.
Yes.
So
don't give Mr. Yan a hard time. He's a lovely guy. And he didn't make the policy. He just does his best to try to make it work. So don't give him a hard time.
I don't know who you are, actually.
I'm Mr. Yan, come from the Education Bureau.
Thank you, Mr. Yan. Mr. Yan's now going to do away with all testing up to 15.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know in Beijing and what I understand of Hong Kong, testing age 8, at the primary level, they test to decide which band level school they can get into for the secondary level. And that is very important because of the placement shortages and the emphasis on education, because the secondary school plays a strong track in the cultural understanding, in the school's reputation, and their ability to access high universities, whether that's overseas, because a lot of students are now going to school in the UK because of some of these placement issues. So they're, I think at the end of primary now, they're making sure that they're global. Thank you for nodding your heads. You guys are validating my studying. They're going overseas now, but they're doing it at the primary level. Before, what we saw in Beijing, they were going overseas around the high school level when parents were taking them to America, to the UK, to Greece during the summertime to get that English immersion. But now, because of competition, because of admission shortages, because of parental, I don't want to say fear, I want to say protectiveness. It's not so much anxiety. There is just this desire to give your child the best. And the whole point of your education, your understanding, the Confucian idea is bigger than just academic achievement. It is the whole sense of the family. We have the one-child policy. It's much more than just competition. It is, I have worked this hard to give you this much, and you now have this opportunity. However, accessibility, that's not for every child. So for the ones who can't go, how did I get here? For the ones who can't go overseas.
It's the same here. How it works here is the universities, 18% go to university, and people would prefer Hong Kong U to the other ones. I'm not going to comment whether that's correct or not, but they would. And the way it works is that you go for an interview when you're like 3. And as Sir Ken Robinson says, you interview this kid and you look at this, you've been around for 3 years and this is it, that's the lot, this is all you can offer, right? And why do they go for the interview? Because they want to get into a good kindergarten. Yes. What's a good kindergarten? A good kindergarten is the sort of kindergarten that gives the best chance of your child progressing to a good primary school. And within that good primary school, the elementary school, the one that our girls went to, each year had 3 classes. So that was like banding. You wanted to get into the A grade class in that year because that A grade class, from that class would be the majority of, there'd be a bigger chance of going to the Band 1 secondary school. And why do you want to get into a Band 1 secondary school? Because they've got the best chance of the best mark in that exam to be one of the 18%. Well, that's fine, I suppose, for those who succeed and are part of the 18%, although I personally believe it damages children to go through that process, even if they succeed. But for what about the rest? You heard Vincent Young, is it, or from the youth college yesterday. He told me in private conversation, you get kids who go to VTC because they're not in the 18%. And the first thing they've got to do is rebuild their confidence because they're seen as failures of the system, 82% of them. What sort of system is that?
Yes.
You know, and so that is, and it's not that different to Beijing, is it?
Yes, but the environment in Hong Kong, you don't have the placement shortages that you have here. And
You do it at university.
yes, sir, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. But university, between primary school, secondary school, kindergarten, between I feel like I'm having a conversation, so I keep forgetting I need a microphone. But I've been privileged to study and listen and have friendships and tutor and teach. And in my understanding and my desire, I've had a chance to just listen to parents and see how what parents say is different than what the academic world understands. So it is different in Beijing. Competition is definitely there. Beijing has the most prestigious schools or universities by far within the whole region of China, except, you know, Hong Kong is different. But so all students take the Gaokao. That's their university admissions test, because if they don't have the access to go overseas, then they strive to get into the best schools for the same reasons. But what I'm understanding about Hong Kong students, and they are competing straight out the gate for preschool, like you're mentioning, and that is not a phenomenon that I've seen in Beijing, and that's what's totally blew my mind about what I've been researching and what I'm hearing from you all, because this was new to me.
Can we have some more comments from the audience? Yes. Thank you.
Testing. Okay, this is Keen, and I'm the father of two girls of 4 and 8 months. We are talking about university, right? I think most of the concerns of our potential homeschooling parents is that for those homeschooling parents, what is the plan for us to prepare our students to the university? Actually, as you know, in Hong Kong, the only way to the university is the DSE. I mean, the public examination, and of course, we have a number of percentage of students that can go over the stream for overseas students. Yeah, and but the point here is that I can say for the mainstream, or for if we want to maximize the possibility of our kids to the university, and at the same time we do understand the benefits of the homeschooling. Do you have any advice for us to prepare our students to the university, as no matter in Hong Kong or any overseas universities?
First, quick one before she answers the question, before Paula answers the question. 1 in 5 students at Hong Kong University do not enter with that DSE exam. 1 in 5. So there are other ways of going to university. Just want to answer that first.
Yeah, I know. But what I can say is that it's a minority, actually.
Yes, I was just going to say, lobby the university to have other ways of entry, but there are. So that way is open. You don't need to pass this exam to enter. A minority, but then home educators are a minority, so you would expect some sense of minority.
I just want to add, outside that 80%, actually it's only probably about 10 or 20% that can go into university. So it's still the minority that can go to university. It doesn't really matter if you think that way.
Yeah.
Right?
If I may very quickly address that, 2 things. One is that 17 years ago, when homeschooling started to happen in Taiwan, almost 100% of the homeschool parents think exactly like you are, sir. And they all think about, if I take my kid out of the school system, does my kid have a better or no less chance of going to university? Then very soon they realize that, what a waste of opportunity. Why bother taking my kid out of the school when I'm just repeating the same thing? So things are to change. While we are changing, guess what? The school is changing. The example I give at Tsinghua University in Taiwan is exactly the same. They look at the data. They say, gee, all these kids who came through with this brilliant score, we're talking about top 3% of the whole population. And they say, well, guess what? They are not that much keen on studying because after going through this sausage-making machine for 18 years, they had enough. They don't want to study anymore. They want to party all night. And then, so they said, well, maybe we should start picking up kids who never took a test before, and they are serious about going to school. And guess what? We're not going to do any tests. We're just going to look at what they have achieved. So it works on both ways. Think about why you want to send your kids to college first. Maybe Arnie is going to address it later about what the future of learning is like. And you will not be so, you won't feel so anxiety about the future. And the system is going to change. Eventually, maybe, I hope Hong Kong University will one day wake up and say, gee, homeschool kids in Hong Kong are so brilliant. We should take more of them.
Last question before. Do you have something? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just make my... Oh, do you want to speak first? Let this lady speak first. They're here. This lady here.
Sorry, my English is not very good. Can I help?
講中文得啦，我幫你翻譯啊。
Oh, thanks. 呢兩日啦，我都有嚟聽。我係一個普通嘅師奶啦，咁我有3個小朋友。咁呢個題目講教育有選擇，咁我一路聽嘅時候呢，對於我嚟講呢，我就睇唔到有好多嘅選擇。第一樣嘢呢，就係如果我又唔係教育工作者，咁我又唔係好熟悉喺一路聽嘅時候，我好想學我點樣喺屋企自己教。咁但係呢，我似乎呢去見到就語言一個問題啦。我頭先有在家教學嘅家長講，我要上網先去揾到點樣可以家嗰度教我嘅小朋友。咁另外我又聽到有教育嘅即係教育局嘅人員喺度啦，咁可能都係少數啦。咁我去睇嘅時候，點樣？好似我呢啲咁嘅師奶係少部分，又唔識英文，但係我又知道我個意識，我係想爭取有選擇。但係呢度呢，我聽咗咁耐，都係啲教授講好多偉論嘅嘢，或者係要爭取。咁但係我哋呢班小師奶，我知道呢，即係呢個組織都係有啲師奶去組成，但係我仲有一班師奶連即係溝通能力都唔得嘅，咁我點樣可以去爭取到我喺香港裏面有另類嘅教學？咁我聽唔到好多我有啲乜嘢嘅選擇，或者係我真係從我自己屋企做起嘅時候，但係我冇呢個背景，我冇教育嘅背景，我冇好多嘅資源嘅時候，我唔知道在座即係嘅專家可唔可以幫我哋呢啲再少啲嘅再基層再低啲嘅時候，可以有其他嘅選擇呢？
Right. Okay. So you could do it the same way as a school does it. Right? A school looks at its test results to see. You understand it? You can't understand, can you? Have you got a translator in there? Good. Okay, so take the same approach as a school. A school looks at its exam results to find out how it's doing. Arguably, that's not really about the children at all. It's about the school learning or giving the government some feedback so the government knows if it's going to keep funding that school, if the children are doing well at the tests. So I'm involved on an everyday basis really through my court work with assessment of home educated children. So the first thing you need to do is to take a baseline, right? Write some notes, put a folder together of where your children are today, not in a test way. Like today, what does my child do? My child walks, skips, sings, swims, simple things. You might, so if you're wanting to measure and you want to know how good you are as a teacher, then you can keep a scrapbook going, right? And then in a year, you can fill in some more spaces in your folder and then look at what your child has learned over the year, and that way you assess your progress. Not just the child's progress. In fact, you could say you're evaluating yourself as a teacher. Now, as a teacher, as a parent teacher, you should be into some self-evaluation, and there's quite a good way of doing it. So when I go into a home where I have to, for the court, evaluate home education, what I will want to do is know where the child was at any particular stage and where the child is today. And that helps me. Is the child moving forward? Right? Well, we do know that children like to move forward, so it's a fairly simple thing to fulfill. But is your child moving forward? And you can look at the ways in which your child is moving forward. And this allows you to look at ways, not ways that are going to be tested necessarily in a school or even at school at all, but, you know, your child couldn't swim, and now your child does swim. Your child didn't like reading, but now does like reading. And in that way, just gradually over the years and over the months, you are making an assessment. You're giving yourself your own feedback, your own professional feedback as a parent-teacher. And I think you'll probably find that you're learning on the job. You're in your own apprenticeship, and you have to give value and confidence. You will grow in confidence over the years if you're home educating or over the months. And if at any stage you feel you no longer want to home educate, or the child doesn't want to home educate and the child wants to go to school, that's fine too. You've fulfilled your task up to that point. You know, you're going with it, you're learning on the job. And I think it's very important to have that confidence. And the other thing I do I look, when I go into a family, I look at where the child was at a certain stage as far as I can, and where the child is moving towards. I wouldn't ask the parents what their plans are. I might, but I will try and look at where I find the children now and some evidence of where the child was in the past. And then I'll look for your own research as a parent, and in research we would look for some triangulation. So you're looking for 3 points of evidence for some progress. So you can look at where the child was, where the child's going, and find some additional, like socially, what's happening socially. Look at take a temperature outside the family to see how your child's doing, and learn on the job.
係，咁我哋其實呢個時間差唔多。頭先咧，阿太太講個問題，其實我哋喺開呢個會嘅時候咧，我哋都有預見過，可能大家有呢個問題，因為我哋而家喺香港呢一個會議係真係第一次拎呢個嘢大家出嚟講，係有一條。希望唔好咁漫長，希望可以令到呢個大家個反思個過程唔好太過漫長。咁但係我哋亦都希望其中一樣嘢咧，就係呢個會議我哋唔係淨係想俾家長聽嘅，其實我哋亦都有啲教育界嘅人士嚟到，我哋都希望影響到喺主流學校嘅老師或者校長或者甚至即係辦學嘅人士，當佢哋都能夠反思嘅時候，就算你哋以為冇得選擇係留翻喺主流學校入邊，其實可能嗰啲老師，喂，我諗下嘢，我會做嘢啦，我會都俾喺學校入邊嘅學生都有翻多啲選擇，所以我哋係唔想話，即係當然我哋要相輔相成嘅，要家長同埋學校一齊去努力嘅。即係如果唔係成日都話，喂我叫我唔想做咁多功課啊，跟住阿校長又話，喂，人哋隔離嗰個要多啲功課咁樣，咁啊點解又唔理我呢個要想做少啲功課啲？但係我哋就要有啲堅持，但係堅持得嚟就唔使一定要上街嘅。即係我覺得堅持咧就可以，即係可以傾下偈啊，係嘛，同下啲老師即係拍下膊頭啊，係咪啊？即係等大家其實有個好過啲嘅心情咧，咁一個開心愉快，大家一齊上咯，係咪啊？咁啊陳包我當然都好，真係都好欣賞啦，佢成家一齊上街。好，咁我哋嗱，其實咧最後咧，我好想大家咧都真係最後留低，因為咧我哋差唔多咧會有個結幕禮，我哋叫畢業禮啦，即係叫做大家都做過2日嘅反思嘅工程。我哋希望喺另外嗰2笪地方嘅參加者都翻晒嚟呢度，因為我哋咧有個比較特別嘅節目，我哋有隊 band 喎，請咗一隊叫新青年理髮廳，唔知大家聽過未啦？咁樣一個年青嘅樂隊，都係追尋佢自己嘅夢想嘅一隊年輕人樂隊啦。咁佢會嚟同我哋唱歌，但係臨佢唱歌之前呢，亦都會有啲在家自學嘅小朋友同埋我先生阿 Annie 咧有個少少嘅 presentation， 跟住我哋有個樂隊，咁啊有少少 entertainment。咁啊，如果想休息下嘅，可以休息一下，我哋可能10分鐘翻嚟呢度，好唔好？